Hey guys, welcome back to Inside the Mind of Daniel Thompson. I am said gentleman. So this episode is going to be kind of more on the fly than another one. So moments ago, uh, the Derek Chauvin verdict came in, and he's guilty on all counts. And of course, if you follow me on social media, on Facebook or Twitter as at Old Fashioned News, which someday I'll tell you the inside joke that name actually points to. Um, But of course, my first statements were guilty, guilty, guilty. And I kind of want to unpack it and kind of work through my reaction with you guys at first, because maybe some of you are going through the same thing. So we've known there was a verdict coming pretty much all day. Since last night, we knew there was one really coming. But it didn't have much of an impact. It was still a lingering off coming sometime soon thing. Yeah, you're kind of anxious, but also it's just far away or vague enough that you don't feel anxiety like you do when something's rushing towards you. Then TV cuts back into the courtroom. For me personally, I don't know why, but I just sat there staring. The only other time that I could describe how I was kind of breathing and staring at the TV is when I was 21. I was in a car accident, pretty much a head-on car crash. Um, Took off my front wheel, totaled my car. I wasn't injured, except I was temporarily deaf in one ear and, that kind of thing. But I was in shock for a day or so, or throughout the night. And it's this thing of looking at something or at reality, and for whatever reason, you don't believe it's happening. So, as I'm sitting there and the judge reads guilty, it it's almost sad because my initial response for a second was doubt. Like, did I hear that right? And then I sighed. And yeah, I heard everything right, but it didn't feel real. Because this was a fairy tale ending, you see. Being a black biracial person in America, having lived through some historical events myself, and hearing about other people in my family living through historical events. For instance, my grandfather, R.Zell Thompson, could not read. He never really admitted it, but we all knew he just couldn't read. That's because my grandfather grew up in Chickasaw County, Mississippi. And those who know the difference between education for black folk in the North as opposed to the South, uh, in the early 1900s, know that my grandfather didn't really get a great education. So he got about a third grade education, maybe. And I've read, there's actually, when I worked for Kenosha News, I went to newspapers.com because we have, a subscription. You could look up archives. I looked up my grandfather and I found an article of somebody had offended or assaulted a waitress in a place my grandfather was at and then ran out the door. My grandfather ran after him. That guy beat my grandfather with, I think it was a lead pipe or a wrench. That's why he had a scar on the top of his bald head. I I saw the scar every time I saw him, never knew the story, and he never told me. I found it out within the last year. I mean, my grandparents met my grandfather was a chauffeur, and my grandmother was the cook for a white family in St. Louis. One of my uncles was beaten to death out in Hollywood. Nobody knows why. Nobody really knows the official reason why. And that's my family, so, yeah, that's just stories that I heard down the bloodline. But then there's the national ones, like Emmett Till. Emmett Till, a young kid killed for supposedly catcalling a white lady who later on said that she had lied. Just a black kid accused of doing something he didn't do and he died. Just murdered. Just gone. Hell, it still happens. Think about it this way. Why is it that when there's a black gang or a black gang member that shoots three or more, at least three, kills at least three, and injures three or more others, we don't call it a mass shooting? We call it gang violence. We call it black on black crime. But oh God, throw a couple white people in the mix. We got a mass shooter on our hands. We got a mass shooting problem. We got a gun violence problem. So take all that and just live through the moment of, for the first time in however long you can remember, getting what you needed, getting what you deserved, to finally know that word we've all been chanting for so long in a way that is more meaningful than just a hope and a prayer, that being justice. It's surreal. After so long fighting, even here locally in Kenosha, the killing of George Floyd by the murderer, Derek Chauvin, is what sparked protests here. It's what sparked the the movement, the push here for us to be better. George Floyd's death happened far away, but it was so incredibly close to all us people of color. And it hurt, because it could have been any of us. But here's the best part in the end with this verdict is that now, because at the end of the day, one of us, George Floyd, got justice. Now, with a smile on our face, we can turn to each other and say, well, I guess it could be any one of us.